Yeah, we chillin' with no call. I got deer on my drawers. Yeah, they take gon' knock you off.
Okay, first off, you have to find a simple lead or pluck. I chose the Luscious Sweeping Pad. This is the first melody, so it doesn't have to be too over the top. You could just do a simple melody like I did. Make sure that when you're recording your notes, you have your quantization on 1/8. I then repeated the same thing on a different track with the same instrument, and it sounded like this. It sounded a little weird, so later I would delete these two. Next, you want to find any lead or pad for a chord in the background. I chose Lush Ambient Waves. Chords should be simple, it should be only 2 or 3 different chords. It was too loud, so I played around with the volume until it wasn't drowning out the lead. You next want to find another pad that has like some effects on it. I chose the Sun Glitters pad. It's really the same rule, just keep these chords simple. If it's too weak, you can go into the editor and change the velocity. Next, you want to find any cool sound effects. I chose Pixel Zapper. And then I kind of made it so where it plays one time each second. Then deleted the Luscious Sweeping Pads because it sounds very weird. The melody ended up sounding better without it. Next, find any strong lead. I chose Icy Synth Lead, and then just throw it in the arpeggiator. If it's too fast, I usually just put it on 1/8, and then it works well. And I just hold the button down and it makes this cool pattern. I next recommend the Stardust ARP for another ARP, and it just makes it really good for the background. Now the melody sounds like this. I then connected the two patterns in the editor, as well as changed their velocity, so it sounds smoother and it's all in one line. When you want to use like an insane pluck, I recommend the Retro Synth pluck. And then because it was a fast pattern, I put the BPM down and then recorded it. Melody is slowly starting to come together. I also like to put the cool whoosh sound, and I recommend Terraform for that. No words are needed to describe how good it sounds. Then you need a string so we can make chords with it. I chose the synth pop strings. The strings sound like this. Next, you want to find like a pixelated arpeggiated lead. I chose Adventures in Circuitry, and this thing is just a cheat code. Then repeated the same thing, but at a lower octave and in smaller patterns. This is how it sounds together. You want like a glitter sound effect, I chose Enchanted Lands. And another ARP with reverb is Fluid Motion. Now we get to the drums. I'm using the Flex Music drum kit, which I'll leave in the description. I started with a hi-hat and I used the Trenches hi-hat. When you're doing the drums, you want to slow down the BPM so you can be more accurate. You just do a simple hi-hat pattern and a couple fast ones. Next, you need an open hat. I chose the All-Star open hat, or you can use the Trenches triangle. Next, you need a chant. Any chant in the drum kit will work on the beat. Easy to make a pattern with them. You just play one and make them all spaced out when you're playing the notes. they are too quiet, do not up the volume, simply just change the velocity. You now need a snare. I use the Baghdad snare. You then need a clap. I use the Trenches clap. I ended up taking the clap out later because it sounded weird. Now it's time for the most important part of an OSAMASON beat, the 808s. The best 808s in the drum kit, in my opinion, to use for a beat are the Nothing 808, Come Through 808, the Baghdad 808, and the Uno and Trenches 808. And lastly, the best of all of them, the Me 1 808. And now make a simple pattern, just make sure the octave isn't too high or too low. Want it drowned out, put the 808s on max volume and then also put it on maximum velocity, as well as connecting them together so it's all in one line. This is so the 808 sounds smoother and not choppy. Next, go to the visual EQ and go to the gain. Make sure not to raise it too high or it'll sound weird. Just raise it like a tiny bit. That way it covers the melody but also sounds smooth. The absolute best way to make it sound good is to find a white noise online, then download it, and then when you record with it you can just hold it down and it will just make the white noise in the background. It makes the shh in the background, which makes it sound a lot smoother and better. Next, we're gonna add a beat switch. If you want like the bleep bloop, if you want like the Ken Carson type of bleep bloop pixels, I recommend using A Simpler Time. I recorded 2 parts of this, so it has 2 different cycles. 808s are going to drown this out, so you can add a bunch of reverb so that way it slides in. Then just find another ARP. I used classic ARP echoes. Beat is finished. You can also add a sound effect at the beginning if you would like. Here's the final beat.